I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Virginia, Washington, Texas.
The starters
Tennessee,
announcing the start of event
Duke,
number 20, the women's second
Tulsa,
varsity
Kansas State.
Heat B.
Attention.
Lane 1, University of Virginia.
Go.
Lane 2, University of Washington. Lane 3, University of Texas. 4, Tennessee. 5, Duke. 6, University of Tulsa. And in lane 7, Kansas State University. Beautiful start here. Beyond the 100-meter breakage rule. And over in lane number 1, the Cavaliers from Virginia have the lead. A slight advantage over the Huskies from the University of Washington. Tennessee is in the 3rd spot. Texas is in 4th. And then it's Duke, University of Tulsa, and Kansas State. Right now, a very close boat race for positions 1 through 3. Virginia still with a slight advantage over the Tennessee crew. Tennessee and the Huskies from University of Washington going bow ball to bow ball. But it's definitely Virginia with about a 4-seat advantage over Tennessee. Washington's in the 3rd spot. Then it's Texas, followed by now Kansas State's putting on a good move out here in lane 7. Then it's Duke, and then University of Tulsa. 500-meter mark. Tennessee's putting on a big push now, trying to get back into the lead, but it's University of Virginia, your leader. Then it's Tennessee, Washington, Texas, Kansas State, Duke, and the University of Tulsa is trailing. This is event number 20, the women's collegiate second varsity, Heat B.
Getting those blades back as far as possible.
Well, 2 of these crews will move forward to their women's collegiate varsity grand final. And looking at our lane assignments, currently on the lead in lane number 1 is Virginia. In lane 2, Washington. Out of lane 3, Texas. Lane 4, and fighting for the lead, University of Tennessee. In lane 5, Duke University. Lane 6, it is University of Tulsa, and Kansas State is laboring out in lane number 7.
Virginia in lane 1 are undefeated so far this season. They've beaten Tennessee, Louisville, Buffalo, Minnesota, and Duke. No early season form from Washington in lane 2. Texas in lane 3 have beaten Kansas State, Central Florida, University of San Diego, and Oklahoma. They're also unbeaten then. In lane 4, Tennessee have had more mixed results. They've beaten Alabama, Dayton, and Central Florida, but lost to Virginia and Notre Dame. Duke in lane 5 have beaten Dayton and Buffalo, but lost to Louisville, Virginia, and Minnesota. In lane 6, Tulsa, who seem to be trailing at the moment, have beaten Kansas State and Kansas and Central Oklahoma, but lost to Oklahoma. And out in lane 7, Kansas have a lone victory over Southern Methodist, but have lost to Tulsa, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, University of San Diego, and Central Florida.
Top 2 will move forward, and we're on the water now with the women's collegiate varsity. Early leader, Virginia in lane number 1. That would be the closest to the shore. Tennessee is hustling along out there in lane number 4, and they are challenging for the lead. Also, Washington has not gone away. They made a pretty decent move over the last 300 meters and have kind of gotten back into it.
Alan, this looks like a really close race. We're looking at the race course now from the high camera, and you look as though you could throw a blanket over this race and not miss virtually any of the crews in it. Looks like Virginia are holding off a push from the University of Washington, but they're well and truly overlapping. And then it's just a little bit of distance back to Texas and Tennessee, who are locked in their own private battle for 3rd spot.
Virginia along the shoreline. They had the lead early, and they're attempting to hang on. Washington has made a move on them. Then looking out of lane 4, Tennessee, Texas also on the hunt. And then farther to the outside in this order, Duke, Tulsa, and Kansas State. 2 will go forward to the grand final, 2 to the petite, and 2 to the consolation.
So as they've gone through the third 500 meters, it looks as though the echelon effect is starting to kick in. It's Virginia in lane 1, responding to the challenge from the University of Washington. Virginia has started to sprint. Washington are trying to respond. They're still clear of Texas and Tennessee, who are locked in their private battle for 3rd spot. And then in echelon, Duke, Tulsa, and Kansas State as the lanes progress into the middle of the bay.
On the shore, it's Virginia and Washington, almost stroke for stroke now. Looking back to Tennessee in the middle of our pack. Texas on their shoreline shoulder side. Then outside to Tulsa, Duke, and Kansas State. We've got a wrestle going here at the beginning. Virginia and Washington. Virginia on the shore side. Washington in lane number 2. Virginia in the orange, Washington in the white. And they are going at it stroke for stroke, with Virginia still on the lead as they have been from the onset. It is Washington moving outside to Tennessee, Texas. Far outside, it looks like Kansas State has moved up just a little bit, followed by Tulsa and Duke fading. This is Virginia on the shoreline. It is Washington and Virginia, Virginia and Washington, Virginia on the lead. And it looks like they may hold off Washington, as Virginia has gone wire to wire in this one, the women's collegiate varsity B heat. But the 2 that apparently will move forward will be Virginia and Washington. And now we're getting into it between Texas and Tennessee. Texas along the shoreline side. Tennessee trying to hold them off. It looks like Tennessee may have just snuck in there and held off a late charge by Texas. Then looking back to a challenge in the latter part of this race, that is Kansas State on the outside, Duke challenging back up in the middle, and Tulsa trailing a good row for all of these women.
So the interest in the last part of that race was which crew's going to miss out on the 3rd final, and there were 3 of them very close for 2 spots there. So we have to wait for the judges' decision between Kansas State, Tulsa, and Duke.
The Cushman Wellness Center at Chart Memorial Outpatient Pavilion offers 5-star comprehensive